And so it's that character that I still am having a hard time going, wait, am I supposed to care about you? All right. Don't make me like her.
It's like, no.
I've got my sides.
She's a bitch, yes.
This person's good. This person's bad. Keep them in the box. She's coming over in the wrong box. Get her over. Hey, Internet. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about Upload, Season 1, Episodes 5 and 6, The Grey Market, and Sleepover. Just to give you the idea of where we are in the series, Episode 5 begins with little Dylan, a little kid in the afterlife, having a video call with his mom. There's the cat on cue. Kittalore, thank you. I appreciate your interruption. That's great. Okay, she always has to get her word in. She really loves the series. Okay, so anyway, so Dylan talking to his mom, and he is lamenting the fact that his parents have left him as a little kid, even though it's been 6 years since he died. So that's how we start that. We end episode 6 with Nora deciding to spend the evening. She watches the sunset with Nathan in the digital world. Yes. They fall asleep in the park, essentially. She wakes up, obviously, in the real world the next day, and her boss sees that she's been in the digital world all night, which is probably a big no-no, and she gets caught, and that's the end of it. So that's our framing device for these 2 episodes. Grey Market, Sleepover. Again, very aptly named. They kind of tell you what's happening. There's a Grey Market in Grey Market. There's a sleepover in the sleepover. Paul, before we jump into whatever, what are your thoughts on these kind of the middle of our season?
Yeah, certainly I was still happy at this, which is why I downed the whole thing. I like the central characters, so
yeah.
I'm happy with how the relationship is progressing. It's interesting the things that are happening in the world that they're building. So just the idea that somebody who further, as I was saying before, I think that they would explore more this child and
right. You mentioned that
how he would want to.
Here we see it. Yeah.
Yeah, here we see that he was, and that's an interesting thing, right? Like kind of hacks that they do, right? Because the whole idea of, okay, let's leave this thing, and even though it still seems kind of weird, the whole how their lives are in peril or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Innovation, which is like backups.
Yeah, right. It's like, there's first this giant, I forgot what they call it, but the cone of annihilation that you can step into, which is very easily accessible. Then there's this walk through a hedge.
You got to have a cone of annihilation.
Yeah. You walk through a hedge and you've got an hour to exist. And you're like, really? Like you're not living beings, you're code. It seems like you could easily just go, okay, and you lost a day. Kind of like Altered Carbon. Right? Oh, I lost the day, but here, just put my backup in, and now I'm here. Yes. But I forgot the last 12 hours. It seems like that would be a thing, but it's not.
I don't know why they haven't explained that. It's sort of like it's a matter of fact.
Also, Ingrid obviously does the thing where she's going to delete Nathan. That was like a couple episodes back, but she's like, "Oh, just delete." Like, really? You could just You're damn.
That should have been a bigger conversation.
Yep. Yep.
Typically, people don't threaten to kill someone.
Yep.
And then that ends the.
Delete.
Before when you said.
Which is actually one of the. I enjoyed these episodes. As I say, you're right. Nora and Nathan will make or break this series, and there was some good communication between those two in these 2 episodes. But as far as the other characters, like Ingrid, I thought this, especially the sleepover. It tried to make her kinder, gentler, and I didn't buy it.
Okay.
The thing where she's like, "Hey, let me have a sleepover with your niece." So it's Nathan's niece, and so that's the other sleepover.
Are you saying that you felt it? You felt it was forced, which means that either you felt like they were trying to manipulate you, or they're not doing a very good job of making that feel like it's authentic.
Yeah, I think they're manipulating me. I think they're trying to be like, hey, she's not all bad. Because until now, she's been a pretty bad person. I mean, she's not evil, but she's like, she threatens to kill him if he doesn't go along.
She's superficial, and I think they made a point of showing you what her family life is like.
Right. So the family is terrible, comedically terrible. I mean, they're so bad, it's absurd. Right. And so she's sitting around the dinner table, and everyone is incredibly mean to everyone else, including her.
But I think the fact that Nathan's niece, I think they have they actually had a real bond and a connection or whatever. I think she definitely does want to, so I buy it.
I just didn't. She was suddenly incredibly warm and kind to the niece.
Incredibly warm?
I thought she was once she kicked the family out, right? The niece is like, I'll have your dessert. And so Ingrid's like, get out, everyone else. And then she's like, oh, I'll do my hair like yours, and we'll have da-da-da. And, I wonder if Nathan feels lonely. And, like, she's having really caring thoughts for someone who we haven't seen give a caring thought at all until now. I just thought it was a little, turned a switch.
Part of what they're trying to establish is that she's lonely.
Yes, but I think you can still be lonely and mean. That's what I'm. She's I'm nicely lonely.
Right, but I mean, there's a long con if that's the case.
If what's the case?
If this is really just a ruse to throw his niece off the, and
no. Okay, I see what you're saying about manipulative. I don't think she's being manipulative. Okay, I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying the writers were being manipulative. That's what I was, and I think they are. I think they're trying to be like, look, she's not so bad. See, not everyone's so bad.
Why would they do that?
Just to make her feel more like a real character, I think. She's not a cartoonish stereotype. But I don't think they succeeded in that.
If you're saying there's nothing in it, they're not establishing any traits other than that, then that's poor writing then.
Yeah, I think it's poor writing. I think it's poor writing. I agree. Because they set her up as a character. We've seen this character established through, I think by that point, 5 episodes. Right. And then suddenly she has this capacity for caring that I haven't seen at all in the rest of this time. In fact, right before you jump in, I am now off the bandwagon of she killed him. It's because she even mentions it in that moment. She's like, we get the explanation of why she was screwing with his car. Right. She wasn't screwing with his car to kill him. She's like, oh, I tried to set the settings to, occupant safety. So I don't think she was out to kill him.
I think the transition that they're wanting you to go through from seeing her as someone who's evil or mean or bad as someone who is just self-centered. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you believe that what she says, that what she was actually making him, look, you should be more selfish like me. You should not be thinking about, people in the street, pedestrians. You should be thinking about yourself when you're driving. That's the only way to do it. They're establishing, too, the family that is all about, looking after themselves. But then, to me, that makes it interesting, actually. I think that, I would say that you're just adjusting to you're really seeing what this character is about, and that there's more to this character than meets the eye.
While Ingrid is removed as a suspect, I think we now put maybe her family, maybe her dad, for instance, as a suspect, because he knew all about Nathan, the fact he's like, oh, he doesn't make any money, blah, 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 blah. I could imagine that family, because they're terrible, not wanting Ingrid to, marry to a guy who doesn't have any money. They probably think, oh, he's just trying to marry her for her money, so let's bump him off so that she doesn't take the family's cash with her or something like that.
I know what's going to happen the rest of the season. I don't know how you want me to treat those things.
All right, you don't have to say anything. I'm just saying, while I eliminated Ingrid, I have now added Dad.
What I want to say is there's more with the dad.
Okay, all right, and obviously there's more with Jamie the friend coming up, but those are two things.
Right.
But okay.
One thing I want to say about those scenes is, it's funny. It's only recently that I saw, I noticed the younger actress. She's going to be in a movie, I guess, with Dave Bautista, and she's a fairly good comedic actress, actually. I mean, she's just a kid, and anytime you can get a kid who can act and handle comedy, you end up, So I think that's part of the reason why, I think she handled her scenes rather well.
I agree.
And I think she's a presence.
I like the scene where she meets up with Nora as well, and she kind of sees the chemistry between Nathan and Nora.
Yes.
The relationship between Nathan and Nora, obviously the centerpiece of this series. She is talking to Nathan. He's like, "Hey, you want to join me for the sunset?" She says, "You know what? I got a date," because her dad is still trying to push the idea of like you should have someone in the real world. Yes. Which makes sense on some level, right? I get the reason why he would say that. Right. Nathan is disappointed to learn that she's got this date. And the date is interesting. I think it's Byron, the guy that she's slept with a couple of times.
Wait, Byron's in the second episode, in the 6th episode.
Yeah, I've jumped ahead. We were talking about the sleepover, so I was just like, we'll just stick with the sleepover. We'll come back to Gray Market. Gray Market's okay, yeah. But we were. I mean,
because I want to go back.
Okay, we're going back.
Because it establishes Nora actually firm with her father, more with her father.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Okay, so she leaves. She's trying to pep up Dylan's spirits. Dylan is feeling bad about himself that he is stuck in this perpetual little kiddom.
Right.
So Nora is trying to look after him, play games with him and such, babysit him. But she gets called away by her dad.
Yes.
And so Nathan agrees, I'll be the good babysitter. You can go do your thing. And then he's a bad babysitter, essentially, right?
Yes. He's bad. Well, primarily because Luke pulls him away, actually.
Yeah.
They all have a need that isn't being satisfied by that, by their surroundings. So they're all pulled to try to find something better, basically. Right.
So Luke has used an online dating site, even though it's not supposed to be used by digital folks. It's for the living. Nightly is what they call it. It's like a Tinder, essentially, I guess. And so in order to meet up virtually with the real people, he has to get to a certain level of Lakeview that you can only get to with a particular badge that you have to get at the gray market. And so he wants to go there, but he doesn't want to go alone. And so, actually, he wants. For some reason, he feels like he has a double date. I'm not sure why that is, but Nathan has agreed to be his wingman, essentially.
Well, I mean, you could see some of the effects of that, although it turns out that it was just some dude.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was a nice stinger on the end of that scene.
That seems like a classic thing where, it's like, oh, wow, we can go if you can find someone for my friend.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So that's the reasoning why Nathan has to join. And then, of course, Nathan can't go and leave Dylan behind, so he has to bring Dylan with him. And so the three of them go through the hedge and have an hour to live.
Yeah.
And they go to this gray market, which is, represented by, this underground thing, and everybody's, all kinds of pirate hack style stuff you can acquire.
Right. Yes.
And so that's where Dylan gets this special tattoo. We find out the XX is not for some cool hey, double X. It's because the X chromosomes, which means he's going to be a female when he hits puberty overnight. Kind of a version of Big. While there, Nathan does see, he pays for 10 seconds of video footage of seeing Jamie talking about his program, essentially, but
without crediting him.
Yeah. They successfully return just in time, of course, and we see Dylan go to bed. He wakes up. He's a female. What's interesting about this gag is that in the past, I think it would have been treated as just a gag, where it's like, hey, I have boobs, and oh, look out. But here, like, there's I think a really cool moment there where Nora's like, look, gender's fluid. If you want to.
Right.
If you want to be female, that's nothing wrong with that, and we could just, and he's like, I think I'd rather be a little kid again, whatever. But it's interesting.
I mean, in a way, though, they went through changes with him really quickly, and the change that I'm actually speaking of is, because of his anxiety about the fact that, or frustration with how he hasn't changed at all, and yet he's interested in women. Then after he spends just not that much time as a woman, now is very sympathetic.
Yeah. Well, which is kind of like my argument about Ingrid. It seems like she just suddenly was very sympathetic and like, hey, look, I have empathy for people all of a sudden. It does feel like they turn on a dime a little bit, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, and people, though, I think, at least TV shows can have someone have a revelation.
Yeah.
And then their natural sort of way of thinking can still kind of win out.
Right.
So
they have a little learning moment.
Same thing
and then,
could be this, but then it's like, oh, now you're back to normal, yeah.
right. You know me.
So I think you could look at even Ingrid that same way, in that perhaps yes, one thing they said about the relationship is the fact that it's sexual, and that's a primary way in which they interact. And I would suggest that she seemed pretty desperate, actually, in that previous episode to reconnect sexually with him. And while you could say that, wow, actually, if it's as significant an investment for her, that she would do that for a relationship that's not all that strong, then perhaps really she appreciates the thing in him, in Nathan, that's really worth, and that's really, like, oh, he's a really good person, and so if she can be in love with him,
I got you.
She can express something in herself that's not there most of the time. And so, so that's, kind of how I'm seeing it in a way. And
that she's got this, like, latent goodness that they could peel back the layer, like, oh, you're a reasonable person.
And I would say the way that they're sort of slowly moving with the murder plot, also, too, the way that they're exploring her character and other characters, I would say.
Well, there's
the core who are going to get the most of the attention.
There's a therapy session, I believe that's in the 5th episode,
that's
where she brings her own therapist. So
yes, she does.
It's a couples therapy with two therapists. They're like, usually we don't do this except for a divorce. And so, yeah, it's very confrontational in that way. And this is another one of those, like, she doesn't seem like a very good person moment. But Nathan says, well, Fran said I was my vitals were coming back. I was actually not dying at all. And she doesn't even lie, which I guess is maybe to her credit. She could just be like, no, your vitals were going down. She's like, maybe they were going up. Something was going up. I don't know what it was. She's like, I mean, that's huge, right? In other words, I killed you, is what she's saying in that moment.
Well, yes.
And then,
Now it's death light, so... it's sort of like I imprisoned you.
Yeah. Well, he says, oh, so you just, you didn't care about me.
Really get out. I mean, she, it's not like she felt threatened by the idea that he could have been put in a body or whatever. She just didn't have any interest in it.
And the idea, she said, well, I forgot how she put it, but I was going to be alone or something like that. It's like, so you killed me so you wouldn't be alone. And then he walks off. He stomps out. Yes. But yeah, essentially, he's got the gist of it. And so it's that character that I still am having a hard time going, wait, am I supposed to care about you? All right. Don't make me like her.
It's like, no.
I've got my sides.
She's a bitch, yes.
This person's good. This person's bad. Keep them in the box. She's coming over in the wrong box. Get her over. Nora's like, oh, I trusted you, and she doesn't really get that upset with him.
No.
She quickly turns the corner back to like, oh, I guess he's okay. I don't know. Like you would think there might be like some lasting ramifications from. Hey, you almost
She had to deal with the ramifications of what Dylan did.
True, her
done.
job is
And
getting in trouble.
He stayed with him and still interacted with him through that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like she had to deal with it by himself. So he was still acting responsibly in that situation.
Yeah.
So I think that, mitigated some of the damage that had occurred.
Oh, also, Fran dies. We see Fran is hot on the trail. I guess I'm mad at her. I didn't even realize it. In our last recap, I mentioned, she might be in trouble. She's been digging around, and like one episode later, she dies.
Yes.
Like, oh, okay. All right. Detective Rice is on the case. But yeah, so she has the same problem. You get those cars, those self-driving cars, they kill you every time.
Yes.
Apparently.
Well, I mean, in both situations, they haven't expressed it, but it's suggested that it's deliberate.
Oh, yeah.
And this situation, too.
So they're just like...
more deliberate.
Apparently there's just a button you can push. Oh, you're in a car? Die. All right, we're done.
It's like, can we put the kill 'em program in there? Okay, good.
I actually did like the fact that... the car blacks out. She can't see where she is. She just hears that she's on some kind of a wooden structure. As it turns out, she's on like a boardwalk heading out to sea. So then it stops because there's a kid in the way.
Yes.
And so there's a little kid's like, oh, what's going on? And then she's like, call the cops or something like that. So the kid moves away. And she's like, wait. Because she suddenly, I think, is realizing the only reason I'm not dead is because the kid was blocking the car. And now like, whoop. And then she takes off. So that was a fun little, dark, but a fun moment. So yes, Fran, rest in peace. Maybe she's going to show up in Upload Land. I don't know.
Well, she got killed before she could, get uploaded.
Oh, good point. You can't do the dead bodies. Yeah.
Right. It has to occur. They can't upload it in advance because it destroys their bodies.
Right. Good point. I forgot the logic of the show. She's drowning, though. Maybe it's, you get to resuscitate her. Okay, yeah. No. All right. Fran's gone. So...
Probably. I mean, I guess it's possible she might have escaped the car.
Good point. It's a mysterious death, but the implication is she's gone. Luke goes to this, gets the badge to the secret club, goes to the club, and Nathan's not there because he's still changing and whatever. Gets distracted. And so his angel, I think Alicia's her name, she shows up, tells the other, like, this guy is, he's dead. Yes. You're meeting with a dead guy. And you hear, like, this vomiting going on in the background. It's like, oh, she's fine with it. And like, so that she logs off. Then, as you pointed out, he talks to the second woman, and we hear that it's actually a guy hanging out with his parents. Like, oh, coming to dinner, Ma. And then leaves, and he's like, So, the relationship between Luke and Alicia gets explored a little bit more in Sleepover. I wasn't really thrilled with she takes his fingers.
Oh, yeah, and
other things. Yeah.
He's like, what about toes?
Yeah. It's a little, I don't know, it's a little weird. Okay, but anyway.
And then, he saves her job after basically
he's like, oh, we're just having fun, this is what I do in the army.
Yeah.
She's cool. And then he's like, so you can't get me, can you? I'm being unpredictable. But it's just a weird
so in situations like that, I feel like time isn't on the show's side, in that zigzags like that, like the one we talked about with Dylan, and then with Luke, and
they're very quick resolution things.
Quick. Well, and I don't.
They're not resolved.
Resolutions in a way. I'm really, they're, it does resolve that situation, but I don't think they're going to let it drop necessarily. I mean, there's still tension between them. It's just that he doesn't want her to lose her job. So,
I mean, the fact that she took all of his fingers and his member. I mean, that's terrible, right? I mean, that's like he has to walk around with stubs for hands and
right. He doesn't experience any pain from it, and it doesn't cause him any lasting damage at all.
It's just man, I don't know. It just The afterlife that they've set up is not very cool. I'll put it that way. There's so many ways to die, right? You're like, oh, walk behind the hedge, you're dead.
I guess,
you get screwed with by the angels.
It reminds me of a video game.
Yep. You are an avatar in a video game.
Right.
Respawn.
So, yeah.
You wouldn't want to be that either, though, I don't think. I mean,
right. I mean, but really, though, to me, it also could suggest how in that world, any interaction you have with anybody who's real, I mean, they have interaction with each other. That's something as well. But, that's.
Well, you brought up a good point earlier, and I was trying to come back to that, and I forgot about it. It was Dylan. So Dylan is kept as a kid for his parents' sake. The parents wanted to know him as a little kid. But, as you pointed out, he's got the feelings of like an 18-year-old.
Right.
So how does that work? Like, you would think, oh, he's stuck as a 6-year-old, so he'll just keep a 6-year-old's mentality forever. But he's growing internal, like he's got hormones. He's like, his body is maturing without his body maturing.
Well, he's certainly having experiences, right? He doesn't forget his experiences, so he accumulates experiences. Perhaps one of the things that he might be experiencing is, wow, certainly even at the age
he's seeing his brother having dates.
An interest in girls.
Yeah.
But he's only so mature at that time, and so just living that life. Remembering that you're living that life.
Sure, and seeing his brother have dates.
Yes.
And he's like, he was younger than me, and now he's lapped me, as he put it.
Right. So, all those things, without necessarily giving him the experiences where he could, until this particular experience, where he could mature and learn about people. I mean, certainly before you were saying he was kind of a spoiled, brat, and obviously he must have come from a family of means, otherwise he wouldn't even be there in the first place.
Right. I found it interesting. I thought it's not surprising, but it was just an interesting thing that the mom is talking with him on the video call, and she gets very emotional about his death. Yes. And as you would, but it is interesting. It's like she's talking to him, and he's like, "Yep, and here I am, and you can see me anytime." Well, but she's still like, that sense of loss is still very palpable.
Oh yeah. Sort of like
he's like, it was 6 years ago. He's fine with it.
Relationship.
Yeah. So in other words, it doesn't necessarily do maybe what the family would hope it might do. Like maybe in the moment when you're like, hey, I'll spend this money, we'll give him the afterlife, and it's like they didn't ever die. And it will keep our kid, and he's had just the same age as when he was gone, and it'd be great. But it's still obviously she shows up, and it's immense sadness anytime she talks with him. In other words, I don't know that it meets the need that they were hoping it would meet. Maybe when they signed on for the program.
That's why. I was sort of when we last talked about that particular thing. To me, that's an interesting. He's an interesting position, and I would like to see that explored more.
Yep.
I think one of the challenges to that is, he's doing a good job for a kid, but the storyline that's really interesting, I don't know if it's beyond him or not.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Maybe
it's a nice, parallel. It's a nice secondary storyline.
Right. Agreed.
In fact, I'd say I think it's working better than Luke and
Yeah, at the moment, I like Luke. I like the character, but
it's fun them battling each other. Except that I don't think they've done a good job yet of having it mean more than that.
Right.
It's one thing when you have somebody who is as irresponsible as her, that and him. They're both so caught up in themselves and superficial and not especially.
Wait, who are we talking about here? Sorry.
Both of them.
You're talking Luke and Alicia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Both of them, it's like she's got all these jobs and she doesn't really do this job as well as she could. She makes mistakes and stuff like that. and it's interesting that he was a soldier who, I guess, we haven't explored whether he was really a good soldier or not. He was injured in battle.
Yeah, the first time when I saw him put the uniform on for the funeral, I thought maybe he just was picking a costume. But okay, he's actually apparently got military.
Yeah, if he's decorated like that, I guess we can. It's possible that he earned them well.
Yeah.
It's just, he's pretty superficial. he's well, he's
also he's
too, actually, the way he describes it too, actually, it was sort of like in desperation that he did that or something.
He's kind of a grifter too. I mean, he's good at hacking. We know that. He seems to have hacked his way into a lot of freebies, for instance, and she's always like, "I'm on to you."
Right, but I wonder if it's just sort of like the gamer's mentality, where it's like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. And,
well, for instance, there's that thing where he
doesn't mean that he hacks the same way that Nathan hacks.
He like deactivated her avatar at one point or something like she's arguing with him and saying, "I'm gonna take your finger," and like he does this little, he touches once, like he touches her shoulder and then like her purse, and she's like, "Ah!" and she disappears. And it's like he somehow like knew how to, if I touch this and this, like you go away.
Right.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, I just kind of see that as like game, game.
Or like he knows how to get the free roll if you touch the thing a certain way. He knows all the cheat codes. He's a cheat code guy.
Yeah, right. Yes.
That was also another through line, was this again, the Afterlife is filled with ads. So it's the Taco Bell crunchy gordita.
Yes.
She had to say the script exactly like they had to say the script, and so he got to speed her up. And they were just getting gorditas dropped on them. So again, it's like the Afterlife is just, the digital Afterlife. It's just terrible.
Well, yes. But you have to compare it to the actual world that, Yeah,
it's true. It's very similar to...
too, actually,
But you're like, oh, look, I'm in the lap of luxury. I'm at the place where everything's great. Oh, but I have to watch this spinning gordita guy, try to sell me ads. Anyway, it's a comedically dystopian little society.
So the second episode concludes with Nora and Nathan in
right. So she hangs out with Byron. So that relationship, that date, it actually has some ups and downs, right? At one point, you're like, "Oh, this is actually working out," because she met with the dad. She actually has a virtual meeting with the dad. I thought that was interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Where I'm like, "Oh, this is like he's almost uploaded in a way."
That's interesting. That you can have virtual experiences which I kind of feel like I kind of think they should have that more in the show, like Star Trek, where they establish that you can have virtual, you can go into a holosuite and deal with fake characters, but you don't see a lot of that. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. Like, I always imagine let's say a married couple were on two different ships or two different places or whatever. Why you couldn't holosuite into there? So it's like, "Oh, you're home. How was your day?" And
right.
And you could just be hollow.
You pretend you're actually at home.
Yes.
In the same room, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't see that much, and I don't see why you shouldn't,
Yeah, it's like they haven't thought of that. The writers haven't thought of that as a cool use for it. When in practical terms,
they wanted to be, it's hard to establish that somebody is only there virtually in a way that is economically efficient.
I got you.
And actually, too much of the history of Star Trek has not been about continuing storylines and therefore external characters. That caused a lot of headaches.
So she has this date. Her dad convinces her to do the date thing. She goes on the date with Byron. At one point, it seems like it might be going kind of well. And he kind of
weird. I mean, perhaps they're making a statement about relationships in the future, where it's sort of like, "Wow, do you think sex would be better if we got to know each other?" It's like,
right.
What? You still have all the romantic movies in the past because she's watching 40 Blind Dates or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You still have all getting to know someone. But it might be just establishing, obviously, he's a very selfish person, too.
Right. Well, then, because they had met before and they just had these
Yes.
one-night stands, I think it's
Yes.
like she just assumed that was that guy.
I mean,
and then she's
well,
kind of
yeah,
surprised to learn, oh, maybe he's
it's
not.
an interesting character that they're developing where it's sort of like, I like to help kids, but I like to help kids by making them as pompous as me.
Yeah, right. She's like, oh. It was like a series of like, oh. Like he would like over-explain it, and as he explained the thing, you're like, oh, you just talked your way out of it.
It's not good. Not as good as it sounds. Trust me.
Yeah. And so he kind of finishes the by kind of making fun of the dead people that are her job in a way. And so she takes him to her workplace, and he's like, oh, let's see one of them. That one's awake? And she's like, she kind of realizes in that moment, like, I think I'd rather be with Nathan in this moment.
Yes.
So we'll see each other later.
Yeah.
And so she kind of shoos him away, and then she logs into Lakeview, and they sit on the blanket. And now this is where she says, she confides in him, hey, I think someone's trying to kill you, or somebody did kill you. She said, oh, look, somebody had deleted the files. There's a cool scene where when she's visiting her dad at the hospital, she goes and talks to a doctor. It's a nice little scene. Like, might as well, while they're here, let's find a way to make this work. So they had her talk to somebody, hey, would somebody's file get corrupted? And he's like, only by those people that make the avatars. He's like, I'm one of those people. He's like, oh, no, then not you. And so she's like, hey, I got this program that made it. I brought a few files back. He's like, that program, you should try this one. And so he gives her like a free badge, and she uses the program, and she sees a few files. Again, we're seeing Jamie is screwing him over with the software. That's what we're seeing. At one point, Nathan even calls, and Jamie picks up, but he's in the middle of a meeting. He's like, I gotta go. I'm like, okay. Fran was on her way to see that guy Josh, the guy who was trying to hire Jamie and Nathan that we saw in the flashback when she gets killed. So he's somehow anyway. But she says, hey, I got all this evidence suggests I think you were killed. And he obviously takes that really, and he even says, like, you think Jamie was trying to have me killed? And that's got to be a big revelation for him, right? I mean, that's his best friend, and maybe until that moment he hadn't really considered it. But he said, the guy across the hall, Mr. Choke, said I was killed, and now I'm believing him. So then they tried to change the subject. Let's change the subject. And he admits that he has feelings for her, and they spend the night platonically there, lying on the blanket. She wakes up back at the office. What's that?
They don't have a suit. All she's got is a glove.
She wakes up, and her boss finds that she's been there, and she's like, what are you doing? And that's the end. And so we assume there'll be repercussions for her.
There will be
fraternizing.
Yes.
Although, she spends a lot of time in there anyway. Like, she's hanging out with Dylan playing, Parcheesi or whatever forever. Is it that different, hanging out? I mean, it's just when she's not at work. Maybe it's like, you're billing time that you're overtime. I don't know. Maybe the overtime is the problem.
Clearly, it seems like a romantic scenario. They're not supposed to get romantically involved with the denizens.
Agreed. But like, for instance, if
sleep with somebody overnight, that kind of seems romantic to me.
But again, she didn't have a suit, right? So, in other words, what if Dylan had been like, I am scared. Could you spend the night in my room and like make sure I'm not chased away by demons? I don't know, whatever. She spends the night hanging out in Dylan's room.
Okay,
but in other words,
that, though.
So you think it's specifically the romantic angle that's the bad part, not the overtime. Okay.
No, I don't think it's
all
that.
Right. You have feelings for him, and he has feelings for you, which seems like that would start to be very common, frankly. I don't know, in that scenario. Like, if you've got millions of people there, they said some number at one point. There's like tons of folks there. So there's all of these interactions where your one link to the outside world, as you know it, is this voice. I feel like there'd be a lot of situations where that would happen. That's all.
No. I mean, certainly, they don't look like they have that many, and you want to probably have as many people in the system as possible with as few angels as you would need. And so if they're actually tending to all these people, then how much time should they have to have relationships with people? And you would think actually that most of them would, people working there would know better than to establish a relationship with somebody who's not on the same plane of existence.
Well, she has not learned that lesson.
No, she has not.
Her dad's telling her. Now, her dad's also not doing well at all. He's obviously
gonna pass
away.
It would make me think about that, actually. Her mother is dead. Her father is dying. And she's put a lot of energy into wanting to get her father.
Right. So and the only way we get the idea, the only way she can afford it, if she could still convince him to do it, which I don't think she can, frankly, but if she could convince him to do it, would be this employee discount through this thing. And so if she gets fired from there, then that's a huge deal because it means she can no longer do the thing she wanted to do for her dad.
Right.
There's an extra incentive to keeping her job, in other words. All right, we'll be back talking about episodes 7 and 8.
Yeah.
We have been asked maybe to take a look at Snowpiercer. We're going to take a look at that show and see if maybe that's something we want to chat about or not. So more to come, more silly stuff and cool stuff. And thanks, Paul. Appreciate it, sir, as always. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.